Usually, when you pick up an autobiography or like a memoir, you know exactly what the author is trying to do.
Right, they want to justify their success.
Exactly. They want to show you the inner workings of their brilliant mind, detail the insurmountable odds they conquered, and establish this firm authority. It's basically a literary flex.
Yeah, it's the standard playbook. I mean, we read memoirs because we're looking for the secret sauce of highly successful people, and the authors are usually, more than happy to present themselves as the master chefs.
But today, we're doing a deep dive into a set of sources that just actively and hilariously subvert that entire expectation.
Oh, completely.
We've got advance excerpts, publisher notes, and background materials for the upcoming 2025 book from comedian Nate Bargatze.
Right, it's called Bigdumbeyes, Stories from a Simpler Mind.
Yes. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack how a childhood filled with literal clowns, microscopic speed traps, and head-bending cliff falls forged this uniquely simple worldview, a worldview that somehow resonates with millions of people.
It really is the ultimate Antiflex. And treating these excerpts not just as stand-up routines, but as a sort of anthropological study of his upbringing reveals a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a compelling look at how a highly specific environment and a deeply eccentric family can totally calibrate your perspective on reality. It actually prompts you to look at the weird things your own family does, but through a much more forgiving, humorous lens.
Absolutely. But we have to start with the sheer irony of the source material itself. Because Nate Bargatze is very much on the record as a guy who despises books.
He really does hate reading.
He hates it.
Yeah.
One of his defining bits is that books are just, quote, the most words. So writing one is this massive contradiction to his whole public persona.
Right.
And the publisher notes we reviewed highlight this massive miscommunication right out of the gate regarding the title.
Oh, the infamous title meeting. That is such a great story.
It's amazing. So he's on a call with his publishing team, and with that trademark, slow southern drawl, he pitches the title Bigdumbeyes. But he's met with just absolute silence on the line.
Because the publishers think this lighthearted, family-friendly comedian wants to name his book Big Demise.
Big Demise.
Yeah.
Which is so dark.
It is a phenomenally dark title for a comedy book, yeah.
So they start trying to gently talk him down, telling him it's way too bleak. And he has to explain, no, it's not a threat. People talk slowly to me because they think I can't follow along because I have big dumb eyes.
Demise.
Right. And the notes mention he actually had to go look the word up just to figure out what they were panicking about.
That misunderstanding, it just perfectly encapsulates the persona he operates within. But to really deconstruct how that persona developed, we have to examine his baseline reality.
For sure.
Because you really can't understand a person's psychological makeup without understanding the geography that contained them during those formative years.
And the geography here defies all basic municipal logic. So welcome to Lakewood, Tennessee, or as the text describes it, a tiny blob of a town that somehow exists entirely inside of another tiny blob of a town called Old Hickory.
Which is wild.
How does a town inside a town even function?
I mean, municipally, it's a total nightmare.
Right.
But sociologically, it's a closed loop. When you have a hyper-isolated micro-community like that, the collective behavior starts to detach from the outside world, forms its own logic. The town's social dynamics become, well, highly insular.
Insular is an understatement. I mean, the excerpts talk about how no one ever actually leaves Lakewood. For example, there were two completely distinct families with the last name Thompson.
Oh, the Thompsons, yeah.
Right, and over time, those families intermarried so much that nobody in the town actually knew if they were dealing with one massive Thompson family or three separate ones. The gene pool and the social calendar were exactly the same thing.
It's incredible. And when a community is that insulated, their reactions to external stimuli like weather, for instance, become entirely idiosyncratic. Just look at how they handle winter.
Oh, the snow. So it's the South. They don't get much snow. But when a mere half-inch falls, the entire town basically enters lockdown.
Emergency surgery or cancel.
The infrastructure collapses, and the whole town congregates at a single hill behind a church to go sledding on plastic trash can lids.
Because of course they do.
Right, and within 5 minutes, the snow is gone. It is just pure, unadulterated mud, and they just keep hurling themselves down this mud hill.
Which leads to his dad's brilliant idea.
Yeah, his dad gets so caught up in the delusion that he goes out and buys a classic metal runner sled, the kind from A Christmas Story.
Which is physically the worst possible tool for navigating wet dirt.
Exactly. And Nate uses this brilliant analogy in the book for this. He says, trying to take that metal sled down a mud hill is like trying to slice through a Big Mac with a butter knife.
That is such a specific and perfect image.
Which I love because it highlights the stubbornness of it all. But, it makes me wonder about the psychological effect of this place. If you grow up in a town where everyone collectively agrees to pretend that mud is snow, does that warp your sense of reality? Or does it just naturally train you to spot the absurdity in everyday life?
I'd argue it serves as a completely safe incubator for low-stakes absurdity. It normalizes the ridiculous.
Right.
And we see that perfectly reflected in the town's law enforcement. You have this microscopic town that somehow employs 6 police officers, and their entire jurisdiction, literally their whole reason for existing, is manning a single speed trap across from the Piggly Wiggly grocery store.
The stakes couldn't be lower. I mean, look at the Big Red Cream Soda incident.
Oh, this is classic.
His dad is driving the family to church, 9 a.m. on a Sunday. He hits the speed trap and gets pulled over. The officer looks in, sees a family in their Sunday best, but notices the dad drinking a fizzing bright red beverage from a glass bottle.
Which is Big Red Cream Soda.
Right. But the cop, who is operating in this zero-crime environment, decides to play detective. He suspects it's alcohol.
At 9 a.m.
Yes, so the cop says he needs to take a little sip just to verify. He takes a sip of this pure sugar syrup, and as Nate observes, just like that, the cop also got diabetes.
It plays out like a sitcom script because the environment lacks genuine danger.
Totally.
Or take the story of his mother, who was terrified of her husband finding out she got another speeding ticket. To avoid the lecture, she initiates a slow speed pursuit.
A slow speed pursuit.
Yeah, she successfully outruns the Lakewood police in a used Mazda through a residential neighborhood that is, at most, 10 blocks long.
It's so funny. But the punchline to the geography of Lakewood is what happens when it all dissolves. Eventually, the town loses its charter, becomes unincorporated, and the police department vanishes entirely.
Poof, gone.
And you'd think people would celebrate the end of a persistent speed trap. But they don't. They actively grieve it.
Yeah, they miss it.
Nate mentions that he still drives through that exact spot, taps his brakes to drop under 30 miles an hour in memory of the phantom cops, and then speeds right back up because it's a 4-lane road, and driving that slowly is actually dangerous.
Well, when community ridiculousness is shared, it bonds the members. It creates a baseline where the absurd is the default setting.
Yeah.
And for an observational comedian, that is incredibly fertile ground. But the macro environment of the town is only half the equation here. The micro environment of his household is where the real psychological framing happens.
Right, because if Lakewood was a bit strange, the Bargatze household was a literal funhouse.
Literally.
His dad wasn't an accountant or a mechanic. He was a professional clown named Yo-Yo, complete with a yellow wig, a bright orange tuxedo, and huge blue floppy shoes. And he was also a world-class magician.
And the excerpts detail an interior decorating style that borders on the surreal. Just bags of lemons, stacks of fake quarters, miles of trick rope scattered everywhere.
So decades after they moved out, the people who bought their old house pulled up the floorboards during a renovation and found hundreds of marked card decks hidden underneath.
Wow.
It's like they were living inside a prop closet.
Growing up in an environment where reality is constantly being manipulated for entertainment has a profound impact on a child's development, specifically regarding how they seek validation and attention.
I can't even imagine trying to compete with Yo-Yo the clown for attention.
Yeah.
There's a story about his 7th birthday at a local park. It's supposed to be a special day, but his dad decides to put on a magic show. Naturally. So every 7-year-old in the park is mesmerized by the adult in the orange tuxedo pulling things out of his sleeves. And Nate is just standing by the sandbox trying to entice his friends to play with him. And he calls it the fine, clean sand.
The fine, clean sand.
Yeah. And he is entirely ignored. The birthday boy gets completely upstaged by his own father.
And that dynamic persists. By the time he's in high school, his first girlfriend refuses to attend his birthday party.
She was terrified.
She was genuinely terrified that his clown dad is going to call her up in front of everyone and use her as a prop in a magic trick. The father's persona was just overpowering.
So I have to ask, because the text presents Nate's current comedic style, deadpan, understated, almost aggressively normal as a contrast to his dad. Do you think his deadpan style is a calculated rebellion against the childhood of theatrical complexity? Or did he just genuinely realize he couldn't outloud a clown and just gave up trying?
I think it's likely a survival mechanism that evolved into a stylistic choice. When a parent commands the stage that thoroughly, the child is forced to find a different frequency to broadcast on.
That makes sense.
You can't outperform a professional illusionist. So you develop an understated style. You point out the obvious truths that the illusionist is actively trying to distract the audience from. The simple mind persona is a direct counterbalance to the manufactured illusions of his childhood.
But the source material takes a surprisingly heavy turn here. We peel back the curtain on the clown dad, and we hit the darker reality that birthed this family's sense of humor.
It gets very real.
Nate notes that his own childhood was, in his words, pure dumb funny. But he acknowledges that he only got to have that innocent childhood because his dad absorbed all the generational trauma before it could reach him.
And the scope of that trauma is staggering. The father grew up in Kentucky under the care of a highly abusive alcoholic mother. The defining incident occurred when he was just 3 years old. She left him outside a bowling alley.
While she went inside the bowl.
Exactly. And while he was out there alone, he was brutally attacked by a bulldog.
Oh, this is awful.
The injuries to his face were so severe that he underwent 6.5 years of reconstructive plastic surgery. They had to graft skin from other parts of his body just to rebuild his face.
Which, incredibly, becomes the dad's go-to icebreaker joke later in life. He tells people that most of his face is actually made out of his butt.
It's a textbook, yet highly effective defense mechanism. But the fallout from the attack wasn't just physical. He developed a severe speech impediment. Because of this, the school system placed him in special education, essentially labeling him as stupid. He struggled immensely with basic reading and writing.
It just compounds.
And later, his mother pushed him down a flight of stairs, resulting in a massive shoulder injury. He eventually fled to Tennessee, ended up homeless, and became suicidal.
It's incredibly dark. But the turning point is this moment of profound grace. He's taken in by his cousin Ronnie, who was a basketball coach at Vanderbilt, and Ronnie's wife, Melinda. The dad has this massive cast on his shoulder from being pushed down the stairs. He can't move, he can't bathe himself.
Right.
And Melinda doesn't judge him. She just runs a bath, helps him into it, and washes him. He was 17 years old and had never experienced anything resembling unconditional kindness.
Wow.
They brought him to their church, introduced him to their faith, and showed him what a functional, loving family looked like.
It radically alters how we view his career as a clown. Comedy, for Nate's father, wasn't just an occupation, it was a psychological necessity.
Yeah, he had to be funny.
He learned to weaponize humor against his own pain. He leaned heavily into physical comedy. He developed an Andy Kaufman-style routine he called the straitjacket of death.
The details of this routine are wild. He would strap himself into a genuine straitjacket in these small comedy clubs and pretend he was stuck. The show would officially end, the lights would come up, and he'd just still be on stage thrashing around.
And the audience didn't know what to do.
Right. Audience members would eventually come up and try to physically fight him to get it off. They're stepping on his back, tearing his clothes. He actually had to undergo back surgery later in life because of the damage he took during this bit.
The physicality of that routine is deeply symbolic. He's literally staging a struggle to free himself from constraints, inviting the audience to engage in the physical toll of it.
I see it almost like a lightning rod.
Oh.
It's like the dad was a grounded lightning rod, taking all this chaotic, destructive generational pain and absorbing the shock himself so that his kids just felt the warmth and safety of the house. He took the hit so Nate could just be a kid.
That's a highly accurate way to frame it. And the proof of that grounding is the resolution with his mother.
Yeah, this part got me.
Years later, the day before his abusive mother dies, he goes to see her. He doesn't demand an apology for the bulldog, the stairs, or the neglect. Instead, he apologizes to her for not being a better son and asks for her forgiveness.
It's just unbelievable grace.
That act of grace melted her. It's a profound testament to how humor, when anchored by grace, can definitively break a cycle of trauma.
And it creates a deeply bonded, if slightly competitive, father-son dynamic.
Oh, definitely competitive.
Cut to 2007. Nate lands his first major college gig at Belmont University. He asks his dad to open the show for him, but he begs him, please don't be too funny tonight, let me be the star.
And how did that go?
Of course, the dad goes out, absolutely demolishes the room, upstages his son entirely, and then bursts into tears on stage out of pure, overwhelming pride.
A beautiful moment, though. I note from the margins of the excerpts that Nate promised him $200 for that gig and never actually paid him. A fact the father still brings up.
Naturally.
Yeah.
But it shows that Nate was free to find his own path. He didn't have to carry the trauma. Although, according to the book, there was a brief, shining moment where Nate's path wasn't comedy at all. It was academia. let's talk about his brief stint as a child genius.
The science fair incident.
Yes. Because his dad was the designated funny one, Nate decided he was destined to be a nuclear scientist. Or, as he's phrased it, a doctor that does brain stuff.
A very scientific term.
Very. And this absolute certainty stemmed entirely from winning the 7th grade science fair.
This takes place at a middle school built by the DuPont Company, which, inexplicably, was architecturally shaped like Mickey Mouse.
Which is just a great detail. So you have all these very serious 7th graders building elaborate papier-mâché volcanoes and scaled dinosaur models. Nate waits until the night before the fair. He steals a highly powerful secret magnet from his dad's magic kit.
Just a classic magic prop.
Right. And he brings a fake plastic chicken bone to school that happens to have a sliver of iron hidden inside it. He sits at a table, holds his hands over the bone, and uses the hidden magnet taped under the desk to make the bone twitch and move.
It's a con.
It is. He convinces the DuPont Company scientist judging the fair that he's moving the bone with his mind. But wait, he spells it M-I-N, his mind. Not his mind.
And despite that, they award him the blue ribbon. He sweeps the end-of-year academic awards based entirely on a stolen parlor trick.
It's fascinating because it goes beyond just a kid pulling a prank. He actually internalizes the lie. He starts believing his own con. He genuinely thinks he possesses advanced cognitive abilities.
Until the cliff.
Until the literal fall from grace. Over the summer, he's exploring near Old Hickory Lake and decides to climb a 62-foot cliff. He falls, plummets the entire 62 feet, hits his head on a rock, and suffers a massive concussion. He still has a physical dent in his skull to this day.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And his family loves to point out that there was a perfectly safe set of stairs directly adjacent to the cliff he chose to scale.
The family lore establishes this cliff fall as the exact moment the genius was knocked out of him. Because when 8th grade starts, he is suddenly faced with a real academic rival.
Yes, Daniel Rucker.
The kid named Daniel Rucker, yeah.
The redheaded kid whose family didn't own a TV, so he just sat at home reading books all day. At the end of 8th grade, Nate is sitting in the auditorium during the awards assembly. Daniel Rucker's name is being called for every single academic certificate.
And what is Nate doing?
Nate is sitting in the audience, scrunching his face, squinting, trying to use his mind powers to magnetically rip the certificates out of Daniel Rucker's hands, and nothing happens. The magic is gone.
It's a hilarious image, but let's look at the underlying psychology there.
I have to challenge this narrative, though. Does Nate actually believe, in his heart of hearts, that the cliff fall caused a cognitive decline that made him dumb? Or is the dent in his head just the most convenient, bulletproof excuse for a kid who finally hit a wall when he met actual, rigorous competition?
I mean, it's a lot easier to blame a rock than to admit you just don't want to do homework.
Exactly.
It's almost certainly a coping mechanism. It represents the universal transition from being a big fish in a very small, uncompetitive pond in 7th grade to facing a Daniel Rucker in 8th grade. The cliff story frees him from the burden of expectation.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
It's a recurring theme in human development. Our perceived failures to live up to early, often unearned hype are usually the exact catalysts that redirect us toward our actual strengths. Failing at academia meant he was free to embrace his natural talent for observation and humor.
And it also freed him up to embrace his role as a loving, with somewhat misguided, older brother. We get into the dynamic with his sister, Abigail.
Oh, Abigail.
She is 10 years younger. She wears thick glasses, has braces, and is described as a bit of an alien in this family. For example, her best friend was a highly trauma-prone parakeet named Tweety Bird, who once flew directly into a frying pan full of boiling bratwurst oil.
And survived, which is a testament to the bird's resilience, really.
True. But Abigail operated on a completely different wavelength than the rest of the family.
Very much so. Like when she was 4 years old, the family accidentally left her at the church after a service.
Oh, I loved this part.
They panic, race back, and they find this tiny 4-year-old wandering alone in the old adjacent cemetery. She's just casually strolling from tombstone to tombstone, communing with the dead.
Like a tiny ghost.
Exactly. And her dad's immediate reaction upon finding her isn't relief. It's to look at Nate and say, "Do not tell your mother."
Of course. But the anecdote that truly defines their relationship, and arguably the thesis of the entire book, happens around Christmas in 1997. Abigail, who is young and has absolutely no money, spends weeks rolling loose spare change into paper tubes just to scrape together enough cash to buy her big brother a present.
She just idolizes him.
She does. She goes to Walmart and buys him the brand new, highly coveted DVD of Men in Black.
Now, it's the late 90s, so this is the coolest movie on the planet. Aliens, Will Smith, Ray-Bans.
The coolest. She is so thrilled with her purchase that she can't even wait for Christmas morning to find out if he likes it. She enlists her other brother, Derek, to subtly interrogate Nate about the movie while she hides around the corner to eavesdrop.
The setup for disaster.
Total disaster. Derek walks up and says, "Hey man, you like that movie Men in Black?" And Nate, fully embodying the grumpy, too cool teenager trope, groans and says, "Are you kidding me? I hate that movie."
And she is immediately crushed. She starts sobbing from around the corner.
Nate hears the crying, realizes exactly what he's done, and goes into total damage control. He rushes over, hugs her, and fabricates a massive lie. He tells her, "Abby, I only said I hated it because I was afraid no one would get it for me. I actually love Men in Black. It's my favorite."
And to prove it, they sit down and watch the entire movie together right then.
Right. Now, many siblings would let the lie die after Christmas.
Right, you move on.
But this is where the story becomes a fascinating study in familial empathy. He commits to the bit.
He commits to it for decades.
Decades. Every single time a Men in Black sequel is released, he takes her to the theater, they go to the theme park ride, they eat Sour Patch Kids, they watch Tommy Lee Jones progressively age on screen for years.
And then the twist.
Finally, long after they are adults, they go see the reboot with Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. As they're walking out of the theater, Abigail turns to him and casually says, "You know I hate these movies, right?"
She thought he loved them.
And he thought she loved them. They both actively hated the franchise the entire time.
It's amazing.
It's like an O. Henry short story, but instead of cutting off hair to buy a watch chain, it involves enduring CGI pugs. But why do we do this? Why do we put ourselves through years of low-grade misery just to save face with our siblings?
Well, because in a functional family, empathy overrides logic. That story perfectly encapsulates the worldview the book is trying to convey. It is a complete rejection of modern hyper-intellectualism.
Yeah, it's not about being smart.
Exactly. It's not about analyzing the cinematic flaws of a 90s blockbuster. It is entirely about being kind. The absurd, deeply illogical things you do, purely out of love for your family, sitting through movies you hate, biting your tongue, maintaining decades-long lies about Will Smith movies that shared dumbness, is actually the highest form of emotional intelligence.
It really is. I mean, Nate might struggle with basic trivia. There's a great aside where he goes to a Japanese restaurant and tries to passionately argue that sushi was invented in California in 2008.
In 2008.
Right, only to have his mind blown when he learns it's over 200 years old.
Yeah.
So he lacks certain facts, but he understands the complex geometry of human connection better than almost anyone.
He simplifies life down to basic human decency and observation.
So mapping the journey, we start in a blob-like small town with no crime and a speed trap that people actively miss. We have a clown father who utilized the straitjacket to physically fight his way out of horrific generational trauma.
Yeah.
We have a child who briefly believed he was a magnetic genius until a 62-foot cliff intervened. And we have a decades-long mutual hatred for Men in Black that cemented a brother-sister bond. You synthesize all of that, and you get a comedian who proudly champions the simpler mind.
The takeaway for anyone analyzing their own past is this. You might not have a physical dent in your skull from a cliff fall, but you definitely have your own versions of Daniel Rucker pushing you off your pedestal.
Oh, for sure.
You have your own version of a beloved junk car with a tennis ball for a stick shift. You have your own ridiculous, stubborn family misunderstandings that have entirely defined your trajectory.
We spend so much of our energy trying to prove how capable we are. We accumulate facts, we climb professional ladders, and we try to read, quote, the most words.
Right.
But what if the things that actually make us memorable, lovable, and deeply human aren't our achievements, but our blind spots? The next time you catch yourself trying to slice a Big Mac with a butter knife or sledding down a mud hill, don't try to hide it. Embrace the absurdity, because that blind spot might just be the best story you ever tell.